In this lesson, we're going to talk a little bit more about conditions. Conditions are very powerful. They let you create alternate behaviors of both your elements and your workflows, so that you only need to design things once and create multiple options for behaviors and appearances for things that are going on in your application. So conditions can be found at the element level. I'm going to click on the property editor for the button here. If you go over to the conditional tab, you'll find this on all of your elements. This is where you can create conditions for that element. And the way that it works is you define a condition, so something has to be true in order for a property to change. So for example, I have a radio button here. This is a very simple sign up form for my users to sign up to my job app. They will enter their email, their password, and they'll indicate whether they are a company or an applicant. And this radio button will result in some value, either company or applicant. Now, the way that I've set up this button is that there's no default. So when you first load the page, this value is empty. Okay, so let's say I create a condition on the sign up button so that it changes, it looks different if this is still empty. Okay, so for example, when the radio button here, when the radio button's value is empty, then I'm going to change a property about this button. So first I'll change the text. I can have this say, please select your user type. I probably wouldn't word it that way in real life, but just to kind of make the point, we'll change the text. We'll also change another property. We can do multiple in one single condition. If we do the background color of the button, let's make it a little bit more neutral to kind of give the impression that the button is not ready to be clicked yet. And that's actually what we're going to do. We're going to make this button not clickable because we're going to require the user to have some selection here. So I've just toggled this condition on so that I can see what my changes look like. This does not mean that I am enabling the condition or disabling it. The condition will happen if the condition is true, if this expression is true. This on and off toggle is just for you to preview the appearance changes. Okay, the other property I'm going to change is this one here. This element isn't clickable. I'm going to check this box because that's what I want to happen under this condition. Now, this is one single condition with all of these property changes. I could also create separate conditions and do separate property changes for each one. So I'm just going to copy this expression here. I'm going to right click, paste. And let's say that if I did not clickable for this one and removed it from here, it's the same thing. Both conditions would be active and they will both apply. It's not, it's okay to have multiple conditions working together. Now, I wouldn't do something like this because there's really no point to split it up. I'd rather have all of the properties under a single condition, but you can have multiple ones and they don't have to be true at the same time. You can have one passing and one failing so that maybe one condition works and then another condition kicks in under a completely other set of circumstances. It's totally up to you. I could have this button behave in lots of different ways and it's one button. I'm not having to build multiple buttons for all of my conditions. That's really where the benefit kicks in here. So I'm going to remove this condition. I just wanted to show you that you can do multiple. And we're going to add back in this isn't clickable property change here. Because by default, my button is clickable. I have this property here not checked. So it is clickable and it can run a workflow. Okay, so let's just preview this particular condition here. When I load the page, I can see that there is no value selected and my button is grayed out. The text has changed and I don't have any workflows here anyway, but if I did, I wouldn't be able to run it. Now, as soon as I make a selection, let's say company, then my button has changed. It's back to its default styling, its default text, and it is clickable, but I don't have a workflow right now, so we aren't able to preview that. Okay, so now let's create a workflow and look at conditions within the workflow area. I'm going to start edit a workflow from this button. And the action I'm going to add is a sign up action. and I'm going to fill in my required values. The email will equal the value of the input email address, and the password will equal the value of the password input here. And I'm going to change one of my custom fields, which is my type field for the user. And I want to set this to whatever type they select from the radio button. So this is going to equal the value of that radio button. Okay, so whenever this button is clicked, it will automatically sign the user up, and there is no condition on the event, nor is there a condition on the action. Now let's say I wanted different things to happen based on what their type selection is here. So I could copy this event and paste it. So now I have two versions, and to change them so that only one version runs, depending on the selection, I will add a condition at the event level. So let's say over here, I want this one to run only when the radio button's value, where is it, down here, is company. Okay, and then for this one, I'm just going to copy this expression to make it go by a little bit faster. Little things like that, if you start to get used to it, it will make your development go by faster. I will paste that into here and change this value to, what was the other one? Applicant, of course. Okay, so if I want very different things to happen based on what they select, this is a great way of splitting up those workflows and keeping more control and organization over the sequence of actions. If I had one single sign up action and event, and all of the actions under the event are applying to either the company or the applicant, it could get kind of confusing. I could add actions separately to I could add conditions separately to every single action in that case of the consolidated workflow, but it would get very confusing. So splitting them up into separate ones based on who they are will make it a little bit easier for me to follow. So for the applicant, for example, let's say that I sign them up, and first of all, I already know what type they are because this condition is only running if it's applicant. So I could either leave this as the radio button's value, it's always going to be applicant, or I can clear this out and type it in myself. Applicant is the value. What I just did here would actually be useful if you had a different wording here in the option for the user to select from what you actually want saved to the database. So let's say instead, I don't want that title there, and I just want this to say, I am a company, or I am hiring, or I am looking for jobs. Okay, so this makes it a little bit more user-friendly for the user. But in the back end, I can save it as something that is more appropriate for my database. So let's change our values here. When the radio button's value is, I am looking for jobs. And this one is, I am hiring. Then under the, let's just do the first one here. Let's do the hiring one. When I'm saving the type for the hiring value, then I know that the type is going to be company. So we know we can't save the type to the value of the radio button because I don't want that sentence to be saved to my database. I just want the single word company to be saved. And in this case, for applicant, I've already updated it there. So when the radio button's value is I am looking for jobs, then the type will be saved as applicant. Okay, so that's one thing right off the bat that will allow us to split things off like that, and we can have specific values being saved depending on who they are. Now, if they are a company, let's say that we go ahead and create a new company record right after sign up. So I will create a new thing as right after the sign up. The new thing will be a company. We'll go ahead and set the manager field to the current user. Once you sign up a user, they are now the current user, okay? And let's see what else. There's not much more to do with the other fields because we don't have more options available, but we're going to give the user some options if they choose the I am hiring selection here. So we're going to do something conditional with our elements as well. I'm going to turn on my element borders so we can see things a bit. So I've made this form a bit taller so that I can make room for something else. I'm going to create an input for the user to type in a company name. And this will only show if they have chosen I am hiring. This is not going to be applicable to anybody who's looking for jobs. So I'm going to show you how to do this conditionally so that it only appears for the appropriate person. So this is going to be company name. And I'm going to put this input inside of a group. And I'll show you why in a second. I'm going to right click the input group, the single input. It's okay if there's only one item inside of a group. It's kind of hard to see, but once you right click and click that option, it will group it. So I've pulled the group out so you can actually see, here's the input, here's the group it's sitting inside. I'm going to center this vertically so we can see even more, just like that. Okay, now with this group, I'm going to have this not visible by default. Okay, so I've unchecked that box. I can still see it here because Bubble still wants me to be able to design it. If I go over to my elements tree, and I'm in a view now where I'm only seeing things that are hideable, I can toggle this off to see what it would look like when it's gone. However, with this particular group element, I can actually make it collapse its height. So I'm going to check this box here. This means that when this group is not visible, this entire height of the group, this 78 pixels we can see there, will collapse, and this button will shift up and take the space. So we don't end up with big white gap between the radio button and the purple button here. Okay, another thing I'm going to do with this group is I'm going to have a little animation effect so that as it opens and closes, we'll have it slide up and down. It's just a little touch there. Okay, so in what event do we want this group to show? Because by default, it's not showing. I'm going to add a condition to the group, and I'm also going to go ahead and rename the group company name field so that I know exactly what this group is for. Okay, so I'm going to add a condition to the group. When the radio button's value is I am hiring, whoops, misspelled, I am hiring, like that, then I want the visibility of this group to change. The visibility property, I want to make it visible, so I'll check that box. All right, so now that I have a name field available for the company, I can go ahead and create the company in the workflow with a name. Okay, so I will click on, this is our action to create a new company. I'll select the name field. The name will be the input company name. And again, this is only going to show if they've selected I am hiring. It's not at all going to apply for the applicant. Okay, great. So now let's refresh the page and see what we've done here. Okay, so first of all, my button's not really clickable because I haven't made a selection. If I choose I am looking for jobs, I can go ahead and sign up. But if I choose I am hiring, then I have this extra input available for me. Because now I can type this in, because when I run this particular workflow, which is going to be determined by the condition added to the workflow event, it's also going to create a company with whatever name I type in here. So let's go ahead and run that. So I'm going to do an email address of company@test.com. Test is my password, and I've selected I'm hiring, and the company name will be Sample Company ABC. So I will sign up. Okay, I don't have any other actions to clear the inputs or navigate to a different page, but I can see that work was done. And I'm going to go over to my database just to confirm. We'll head over to the data tab, then to app data. And I can see, first of all, my new user record was created, company@test.com. Okay, and under the company table here, we have our new company, Sample Company ABC. The name was saved, and the manager was properly saved to the company. This is the new user I created. I did realize that I missed one step, which is to update the user record as well, because if you recall, under our user data type, we have a field for company to tie users back to any companies that they create. Now, this doesn't happen automatically just because I've saved the manager to the company. Bubble has no idea that these two are related to each other in any way. It wouldn't know, because with this custom field that I've labeled manager, that means that this company should be linked to this user. because this could be anything. This could be my favorite company or a company I want to blacklist. It could be anything. So if I go back to my workflows, I want to specifically tell Bubble to make a change to the current user, and the company field is going to equal the result of the second step, which is our new company we just created. Okay, so now we have a two-way link between the company and the user and the company. Okay, so let's do that one more time. So we're going to do another user here, company2@test.com, test, and I am hiring. And we'll call this Fireworks LLC. Sign up. This guy here is just a plugin that I have on my browser, so you can ignore that. Okay, so let's check out my database and refresh the data. So there's my new company. It's linked to my new user. Now, if I go back to my users here, let me turn on the company field so we can see that. Okay, so there's my second user and the company that we've now linked to. Notice how the previous user, I didn't have that in the workflow, so this is still blank there. Great, so that is one way to, or one use case for splitting up workflows. And notice that this is using the same trigger. The sign up button is the same trigger for the workflow event, but depending on what the radio button's value is, only one of these is going to run. You can have multiple events with the same trigger running at the same time. You don't have to create a condition where you're forcing one thing to happen. I could remove these conditions, and what would actually happen here if I did that is that it would sign up one of the users, and then it would throw an error for the other one because it's going to say, oh, we already have a user with that email. We can't create another user. But just in general, you can have things running at the same time from the same trigger if you want to have multiple events split out. A lot of times that does make it a little bit easier for you to kind of see what's going on if you start to have multiple actions happening. But I do recommend consolidating as much as possible to make things as efficient as possible. If you ever run into the situation where you're splitting events out and you're having to run a lot of the same actions in multiple events, then it's just giving you a little bit more work to do whenever you have to update things or make changes. You're going to have to make changes in every single event. So try to keep things as consolidated as possible. Now, that was looking at conditions placed on the event level. Now, what about conditions on the action level? Well, that's just if you want to be able to run an alternate list of actions based on inputs that you have on the page or different scenarios regarding the user's status or any condition that you can think of. Here's an example where we want to run the event, but perhaps an action might get skipped because of a condition that's not being passed. So here's an example. I'm going to make this form a little bit longer here. And we're going to add a checkbox to the form. And this is going to say, send me an email confirmation. We are going to give the user the choice to receive an email confirmation. So they can check the box if they want it or leave it unchecked if they don't. Right? So I'm going to add an email action at the end of our workflow. Now, this is a really good example of where you want to try not to have double actions that are going to be the exact same thing if you've split things up like this. And actually, we're going to talk about how to manage this type of thing with custom events in another lesson. So definitely look out for that. But I will go ahead and just split things out, just to keep things simple. So send email, and then we'll set it up. We'll say this is going to go to the current user's email address. Our sender name will be, job app. Subject will be your job app sign up confirmation. And, hello, we are confirming your sign up. Whatever it might be. Now, we only want this to run if they've checked that box. So I can add the condition here, only when checkbox, send me an email, which is the name of the checkbox right now, is checked. If they decided to not check it, they don't want the email, this condition will not pass and the email will not get sent. You could have other actions come after it and those will still run. Bubble will skip this step. So this doesn't mean that if something fails here, it prevents the rest of the workflow from running. It's just going to prevent this action from running. Okay, so I could have a navigation action like a go to page dashboard action after that, and the user will be redirected. So I'm going to copy this and place this at the end of my other workflow for the applicant. They can get the same option. They can choose to receive an email confirmation or not, and I can also navigate them to the dashboard page after they've signed up. So this is an example of a condition on the action level. Okay, now your options here for action conditions, they really just depend on whatever's on the page or perhaps something in your database. You can do a lookup of something in your database. For example, if a user exists, if there are X number of users, if there are X number of companies, if the current user is logged in already, or if the current date and time is in the afternoon. It's just infinite. Whatever you need to create here for the environment to make this condition pass, then it's really up to your imagination. And a lot of times the inputs on the page are going to help you with that kind of thing, especially if the user is the one that's kind of dictating the flow, or if you want the user to dictate the flow. So let's refresh the page. And well, I actually can't really preview this too much because this is involving an email. So, the user would either get an email or they wouldn't, depending on the checkbox. But what I can do is show you how this would look in the step-by-step debugger. So the debugger lets you preview this, or not preview, but actually monitor the workflows and the actual values that get inserted in real time, and you can slow it down or run it step by step. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do another user, company3@test.com, test here. Hiring, let's do Party Cups LLC. Great. I do not know why I'm coming up with weird names like that. All right, send me an email confirmation. Let's say we check that, and I'll click step by step and sign up. Okay, so here's what happens. Let me remove that. All right, so I click sign up, and the first thing that happens is it's going to see if it can run the workflow where the radio buttons value is I am looking for jobs, which is not what we have here. So you can see that the condition is not passing. It's in red. Okay, so now it's going to stop this. It's not going to run any of these actions. It's going to move on to the next workflow event. Okay, so here button sign up is clicked and radio buttons value is I am hiring. We can see that this is green. Close that again, because this is now true. If I were to select this value here, anything that's in blue you can click on to see more information. And here's the condition that we've set up. Radio buttons value is I am hiring. I can see if that is true or false by selecting the operator, and it's saying, yes, it is, in fact, I am hiring. If I click on next, it will move on to the next thing, which is our sign up action. So I can see everything that's being inserted into the sign up setup. Email equals company3@test.com, which is exactly what I typed in. If I click on this here, it will tell me exactly where that value is coming from, which is my input email address. And again, I can continue to click through to see that value. That's the password that I typed in, test. And let's continue on. Create a new company. It's going to save the current user as the manager and then the Party Cups LLC as the name. Next action, it's going to now update the current user and link the result of the previous step to that company field. Okay, next one more time. Here's the send email action. And we can see down here, we're kind of covered by this little menu, but it's in green only when the checkbox send me an email is checked, which we can see that yes, it is in fact checked. So it will run this action to send this email to this email address. And then the next action is to go to another page in my application. So I'm actually going to be redirected here in a second. So we've reached the end of the line. I'm going to go ahead and just return back to my normal run mode. And we can see that I'm being redirected to the dashboard page where I have bunch of other random things happening right now. Okay, so so many reasons why you would want to apply conditional statements on your actions. It really just depends on what type of environments you want to create. And it's really to help you consolidate and make things more efficient within your workflow. So you don't have to really split things out every single time there's a different possible scenario. Conditions do help you bring that down into more streamlined flow if you need. And also lets you have your users dictate whether an action runs or not. This is completely powered by the user. They have control because they're the ones that change the value of this condition. They either check the box or they don't. But your conditions don't have to be from user input only. It could be by something that's in your database. If you want to look something up, whether a value exists or not, or if there's a certain number of things, or even something general related to the page, it's completely up to you. All right, so that's a quick look at a couple different examples, but definitely play around with this. I would say the best way to get the most out of this type of functionality is to imagine your most ideal scenario and see if you can work your setup to get there. I promise that more times, more often than not, you will be able to find a path to get to that ideal scenario. It's just a matter of knowing what to place where, what order to put things in, but definitely start with your end goal in mind, and see what you need to do to get there.